Ashley Bell of Redemption Bank, Black-owned bank, like officially Black-owned bank, and it's an interesting conversation. I was just reading an article where him and Dr. Bernice King, I believe that is Dr. King's daughter.
Yeah, Coretta Scott and Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yep. Yes. So yeah, they're partners, and they having the first Black-owned bank in the Mountain West region.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the bank is based in Utah. Very interesting location for a Black-owned bank, and a variety of other different things. So yes, can we welcome our guests?
Let's bring them up.
Hey,
how's it going?
Ashley, how's everything going, man?
Here. It's going good, brothers. How are you?
Very good. Great, man. Good seeing you again. We ran into each other in the airport a few weeks ago.
That's right. That's where we live. You on the block. It's the Atlanta airport. It's a new block.
So that's a fact. So all right. So let's talk. We talked about Redemption Bank. We spoke to you on the phone, and you explained the bank. And a Black-owned bank is extremely important. There's very few Black-owned banks in the United States of America. And can you explain the process of starting the bank? How did it get started? Utah, the whole spiel behind what's going on.
Yeah, it's we're in a very interesting time in our nation's history. When we look back at the night that my co-founder, Dr. King's father, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was assassinated, we had over 135 Black banks in America. And today we have 20 or less. So just think about that. The night he was assassinated, we had over 135 Black banks, and now we only have 20. And that's not because of some, M&A action. It's really because, Black banks struggle because Black people struggle. When you have a bank that holds the ambitions of your local barbershop, your church, your faith-based organization, and every time America has an economic downturn, Black people are the first to get fired, and when it's over, we're the last to get hired back. Well, the banks that hold that money are going to be the first banks to go down. So precipitously, since 1968 to today, every time we've had an economic downturn, we've lost a third of the Black banks. So we've been whittled down to 20. And now the conversation is like, well, we got to have a realistic community conversation about, one, why do we need Black banks? And two, sort of what is it going to take to create more of them and to make the ones we have more robust? The first thing is we need Black banks because when you look at approval rates, Black banks approve Black people for home loans at 85%. There's no white bank out there approving 85% of Black people for home loans. It doesn't happen that way. When you look at all of across the board, the ability for Black people to walk into an institution and know that they're going to get a fair decision, that's Black banks. The anxiety alone behind going to get a loan from a bank that's not Black, there's studies that show so many mental health issues around credit scores and all the things that are involved in that. And you see, and this is what we talk about banking your values. If you right now have a bank and you don't care what that bank does with your money and who they help or hurt, then that's a problem for us as a people. We must always be conscious of the fact that the banks that hold our money while we're asleep, they're using that money either to help us or hurt us. There is no neutrality. There's no you can just sit back tonight and go to bed thinking like, well, I don't know what's going on. I'm pretty sure everything's fine. It's not. You can Google right now and look at the top 10 banks and know who has federal consent decrees right now for discriminating against Black people. And if you hold your money in those banks, you are funding the actual discrimination of your own people. So I say that to Black people. I say that to white people who tell me, or any other race of people that says, what should I do? Well, the first thing you should do is bank your values. If you don't believe that this stuff should be happening, then don't put your money in banks that are perpetuating it, right? So we have to have Black banks. Now, why Utah? For us, it was really simple. Utah is the best state for banking regulatorily. This bank has to be able to reach every Black person where they go to bed. Unfortunately, the Black banks that we have now, many of them are locked into communities that are highly concentrated in low to moderate income areas. So they're fragile. And Dr. King and I created a foundation that tries to help these banks. And we've done really big deals to help big sports and big entertainment do deals with Black banks. You probably saw we did with the NFL. We did the largest Black bank deal with the NFL last month in the history of sports, all the way back to 2020 when we did the first the deal in Atlanta, which was the first sports arena in American history, 100% financed by Black banks. We've been at the center of this movement to create an ecosystem where Black banks can thrive. But what we're doing in Utah is the next generation of Black banks. It's that Black bank that, I won't name any names, but there's fintechs out there that put themselves out as banks that aren't, right?
Yeah.
And then you find out they aren't. You're like, oh man, I thought I was banking with a Black bank, but it's really a fintech, and it's not. We actually need a Black bank with the capabilities that fintechs have. Because the reality is, brothers, unless we can create a digital bank that is a real bank, a real brick and mortar FDIC insured bank that can export technology to reach Black people that live in Milwaukee, Chicago, the Bay, Detroit, Atlanta, until something like that happens, then where we are is that we have a system where fintechs are actually sucking money out of our community. And let me give you a good example. If I'm in Castleberry Hills in Atlanta and I'm planning on going to get a haircut, my barber's going to tell me, yo, hit me on Cash App. Right now, Cash App does well because they spend a lot of money in our culture. They spend a lot of money in our rap songs, spend a lot of money. You hear it all the time. Now, the moment I send that $40 to my barber on Cash App, now I got Citizens Trust Bank, which is a Black bank, a mile and a half away, less than a mile away from that barbershop. That money leaves my Black bank, goes to Cash App's bank, which is a white bank in the middle of nowhere that has no Black people on the board, that has all white males on the board, that doesn't do anything to reinvest that money back in our community. So what I just did is I exported my dollar out of the Black community and put it in another bank for other people to use and leverage for opportunities. So we have to have a bank with that digital apparatus to circulate our dollar. Otherwise, we are going to increase the velocity and the exodus of Black money out of our community at such a high rate that we will actually have generational consequences on our ability to sustain ourselves. So this bank is important because Utah is the best state for digital banking. That's why SoFi is there. That's why Ally is there. That's why every major digital bank is sitting in Utah because of the regulatory environment. And we're going to take advantage of that and reach everybody and be able to have that nationwide ecosystem by which Black people can bank together, leverage our money together, and grow wealth together.
Yeah, I mean, lowering the landscape is vitally important. That was part of our conversation of looking at all the financial institutions that are in Utah. We actually got to, we were there in February for the All-Star break, and we were looking around like they're here, right? Even though 2% of the population is African American, we were looking at like what the first Black-owned bank. What does this really mean? So talk about that process, right? Because your story is very unique. You're the first bank to acquire a white-owned bank by African-American investors. I believe it was Holiday Bank and Trust.
Yeah.
So talk about that and what led you to that specific bank to say this is the thing we need to acquire and go and invest in.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when you're the first to do something, you learn why you're the first, right? If it's something hard to do, the history will teach you why you're the first to do something. And here's the reality. The reason that we're the first Black investor group, Dr. King, myself, we have good brothers like Robert Smith and others that have invested in us. The reason we're the first is because of this phenomenon that exists in our country called white flight. When Black people show up at a restaurant too many times, white people leave. They show up in a neighborhood, white people leave. Show up to the school, they're gone. Well, you can imagine what would happen if Black people took over a white bank, the money could leave. And we saw that happen with Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley went from being the staple of an industry to didn't exist in 2 weeks because the money left like that. You can't stop somebody from moving their checking account. So the reason that you've never seen this before was because every time brothers or sisters had tried it, the white people would find out and they would just leave. And then you don't have a bank. What are you buying if everybody's gone? So you've always had to buy another Black bank so you don't get that shock of, oh, well, what does this mean? Because you got to think about this for a second. It's a little jarring, for a white person to wake up one day and think a Black person owns their bank. Like that's something that they just never would think about would happen, right? So we had to do a lot of legwork in Utah to deal with, they got a very strong church presence there of the Latter-day Saints. You got a very strong business community. We had to go do what we had to do to make sure everybody understood what this would mean for them and how this would be better for them. How being bought by Black people are going to bring you more money and more resources. And the first thing is like this, man, look, it's a community bank. At the end of the day, people bank at community banks because they think they get a better deal. They think they get treated better, no matter what color you are. And so what we saw is we were going to give the existing staff extension of employment agreements so that when people called, because the first thing they did is they called the bank and said, I saw in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, we made front page of the Wall Street Journal. This is the most high profile bank acquisition of a non-distressed bank in America.
So let me ask you a question. So you guys brought a white bank, right?
Yeah.
In the whitest place in America.
Yeah.
Right. How many people left as a result of finding out that their bank was now owned by a black company?
Not many. But that's not on that. But what I'm trying to tell you is that that's not by accident. We had to do the work to mitigate that. And the work that we did was, one, you don't go to a community bank unless you know who's there, right? You pull up to a community bank, you're supposed to know the teller, you're gonna know the manager, you're gonna know somebody to make you feel like this is better than going to the big box, right? So everybody who they interface with, I kept on staff. So when they called and they're like, hey, is Tracy still there? What, I mean, just be real. They called there immediately. Once they saw it, a lot of the customers called and said, well, did the black people fire you? What's going to happen next?
That actually order of business. You're all gone.
Right. That actually happened. So when they called and they asked, did they fire you? They said they were like, well, actually, Ashley and Dr. King gave us a extension of our contract and gave us a raise. So when you're paying people and you're taking care of them, they're like, okay, well, this is how black people do business. Now, think about Utah. They probably have never had to do business with black people. So we started with a blank slate. So they're like, all right, well, black people came in, we got more money, we got more stability, and they're bringing in more money so that the bank can have more bells and whistles and do the things we wanted to do. The second thing we did is we had to go to the community organizations and explain to them, what does it mean? Because unfortunately in America, when you say black bank, and any black bank would tell you this, 6 out of 10 white people would say, well, does that mean my money can't go there?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only black money? You don't want my money? And I'm like, of course we want your money. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta really break it down for them what this means. And I gotta say that we've had tremendous support. This actual, this month, we're doing a big kickoff of all our founders. You guys got an invitation there. It's gonna be something special. The Utah community has gone above and beyond to try to change this narrative of how people see them in the most positive way. And I give them credit. So they're actually, for our founders kickoff this weekend, they're actually flying in to do a unity service, a joint service with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. They're flying in the entire choirs of Morehouse and Spelman to Salt Lake City to do a unity event to support what we're doing. Like, that's like 130 people that flying from Atlanta. And Dr. King and I go out there. And it's going to be one of those situations where being the only black bank in the Rockies is going to be tremendously profitable for this bank. It's going to be tremendously an economic development tool for the state of Utah. And the governor said this. I talked to the governor the other night. The governor pretty much said, look, if I can show the world that black people in Atlanta can come to Utah and make some money, hell, anybody can come to Utah and make some money. And that's real.
Yeah.
And so they see us as an economic development tool to show the world that this is possible. So my investors, people who we've gotten to invest in this bank, too many times when you say black bank, people think it's a nonprofit. They hear the word CDFI, they think like, well, that's not trying to make money, it's trying to help people. And they are. But you cannot be a bank unless you're making money. Let's be real. So we believe you can do good and do well. You can do good, you can help people. You can be a mission-driven institution, but you also can make money for your investors by being in an environment where we're not just asking for, we're not just going to grow this to get more black customers and white customers. We're trying to take this to the next level and be the go-to for industries. Here's what's unique about this bank. Sports financing, and you guys know this world. You know how important sports is to communicate our message to our people. Sports entertainment is the vehicle. You guys are the best at it right now. Like, this is what you do. And we were able to get the NFL to give us their chief technology officer to be on this board of this bank, because the NFL knows that we've done hundreds of millions of dollars of deals before I even acquired this bank through the Black Bank Foundation, financing big sports with small black banks, totally revolutionizing the way capital is utilized on the marketplace and debt. The second thing, Major League Soccer. Major League Soccer, the commissioner, Don Garber, gave us his CFO to sit on our board. We got the CFO of Major League Soccer. We got the chief technology officer at National Football League. No small bank anywhere has that kind of power at the league level that has oversight and the sort of vision over how this is, how financing is going to happen in these two big sports that are leading the industry. So for us, not only we're going to be a community bank, the place where black people can go and get access to credit and opportunities without worrying about the things they worry about at a big bank. But we also are going to be the center of gravity when it comes to financing big sports in America. This is where you will see big sports continue to go to get access, to make sure that, look, because we're too small to do it on our own. Redemption Bank will not just be the first black bank in the Rockies. We'll be the center of gravity to lift all black banks up. Because every deal I've done, whether it's with the NFL or MLS, we've invited every single black bank to be a part of our deals. And to be honest with you, every black bank in America has been on at least one of our deals, except for one. Out of 2019 have been with us. And we think this is giving us another opportunity to uplift everybody by going into these deal flows. And I'm going to tell you one last thing, why these deals matter. Because when the NBA shut, when they marched off the field and COVID hit, they built a bubble. They played every game. They had a whole championship. They didn't miss one game. Every game was on TV. Well, the loan that we did with the Atlanta Hawks and the NBA, that check was coming in from the NBA on time every month. When the barbershop shut down, when the building fund was being used for other reasons at the church because COVID was hitting, and these banks were not getting the support from the fragile businesses that were shut down, having a diversified portfolio in every industry is important, and especially for a bank. So what Big Sports provides is an economic downturn proof source of income. So what I tell the commissioners of Big Sports is, by banking with us and banking with black banks, you actually are helping out the communities that produce your talent in the first place. You can't exist without these communities and the people that come from them. So you want to help out grandmama and her church. You want to help out the brother who's trying to start a business and needs that black bank there for him because nobody else is listening to him. Help us out by helping these black banks do deals that white banks do every day. And I can guarantee you, by doing that, you'll have what's called this impact banking will be a force multiplier in the community. And what Redemption is going to be doing is lead that effort from the best state for banking and export those laws and those opportunities to black banks across the country.
Quick question for you. I get your pushback on fintech, but what exceptional products, services, technological innovations do you guys plan to launch for the consumers that you want to bank with you and that are banking with you, so that they can leave those fintech applications alone?
Brother, that's a great question. And let me explain to you where I think this goes in the larger picture. You're right. The innovation that fintechs provide will always be faster and more innovative than banks just because of how they're set up. Here's the problem. I own a fintech. I own Ready Life. We all got the same problem. When you us, you Greenwood, or you Mochify, or SoFi, it doesn't matter. The problem is, when you're banking as a service, you have to sit on top of a bank with the technology to provide that service. So if you're Ready Life, we sit on top of a white-owned bank. If you're Greenwood, you sit on top of a white-owned bank. All of them do. But you can't fault them for it, because there isn't a black bank in America that can have the technology for them to exist. So we ultimately are trying to answer that question. We're building this bank in the most tech forward state, so that whoever the next generation of entrepreneur is in the fintech space, that they don't have to sit on top of a bank that's not connected to their community anymore. So whoever the next Ready is, whoever the next Greenwood is, Cash App, Venmo, that they can sit on top of a black bank now and be able to still do what they do. So what we're providing is an access point for entrepreneurs to sit on top of our bank, so that they can go to the marketplace and provide all the innovative service. But the difference is, when I'm on the block in Atlanta and I'm about to do a haircut and my barber asked me to hit him on Cash App, the difference is that money won't leave Atlanta and go to some bank in Ohio, that it will go to a black-owned bank, whether I use any fintech that's tied to our bank. So the goal for us, close that loop on the ecosystem, create a bank that any fintech can sit on top of, so we can turn that money into community and not export it through the apps that we have now.